And we are recording.
And quarter after. I think we're probably good to go.
You're unmuted, Marcelo.
Okay, can I start now?
Yeah, you're good.
Great. So, welcome everyone. So, as I was saying before, we started recording that this was a presentation I did a couple of years ago. It was more gaming convention, so it was more focused on the game side than the code side. But I will try to make it more interesting for you guys. Because of course in the convention nobody knew what Bright Script was, so I'm happy to be able to show. You guys can see my pointer? I never use this Google Meet for presentations, but anyway, I hope you can. Good. Okay, so I need to click here. Yeah. So how I got here, just a quick introduction about myself. I am from Brazil. I was born around here in São Paulo area, but my family is from the northeast, is where the sun is in Brazil, and the nice beaches on the shore. And but I lived all my life in the capital of this state here. It's called Pernambuco, the state, and the city is Recife. So I lived there from 8 years old to 40 years old. So, and then back in the day, my father used to work in IBM, so that's how I learned what is a computer. Nobody from my generation in Brazil had any idea what a computer was, because Brazil was under a military regime and people were like basically there was some market reserved that no technology would come from outside, so it was hard. But IBM was already there and was big, so my father used to work for there. And then because of that, I had my first microcomputer when I was 12, and it was a VIC-20. And that's when I started learning basic and programming, and I got a profession from that. I had no idea at the time, but that's exactly the manual that I learned. And actually, that was also my first English lessons, because I had a dictionary on the side to try to understand what this was about, so I could program the VIC-20. So that's how I started back with 12 years old. Then we fast forward 30 years from the 80s to the 2000s. And in 2011, I moved to the US because I was working on this company, Modular Mining Systems. It's based here in Tucson. It's a Komatsu company. And I was doing this kind of stuff. This is an embedded system that I was the tech lead back in the day. Now I'm working more in IoT and front end. I'm the manager of software development there for the IoT group and for the front end group. Okay, and Prince of Persia. Prince of Persia was the game that I think I played the most in my teenagers. I did lost a lot of time playing this game, and when I was here in US, I learned about the Jordan Mechner, the developer. Wrote his journals from the time that he was developing Prince of Persia, and I bought this small book from Amazon. Actually, there are two books. The one from Karateka was his first game, and then this one for Prince of Persia that recently got a new print with a like 30 years anniversary of the game, and they actually included my Roku version in the pages of the reprint. So it's on Amazon now. It's a different cover. But this is that's when I read this book, and I realized that there was so many ports of this game, and I heard about a port for the Commodore 65 that I had some work with that. So then this got me interested, and I wanted to do a port myself. And because I was already developing for Roku, since I moved here, I bought a Roku for my house, and and I had a hard drive that had an API, and Roku didn't support that, so I wrote this small application here. It's called HipServe. Is the system that has in a hard drive. I still have this there. It's my first channel in the channel store, and it was basically, there are several Seagate and other companies they created using this server, this small Linux app on the hard drives, and we could connect. I created an application that I would play in my bedroom, things that were in this hard drive in the living room. So that's how I started developing. It was a project that I created basically in a weekend, and then I realized that I could publish that in the store, and I started doing other stuff like poker clock, and when the new scene graph got out, I tried to do a Kanban. It actually is a Trello client. I created a Trello client using scene graph, but that would be for another. A lot of interesting challenges to use scene graph to emulate Trello UI. It was a nice project. But finally, in 2017, that's when I decided, yeah, I'm gonna try. I have seen some games, in particular from Retaliate. I think you most probably saw it early on. Romans, that Austin, actually his name, that is, I don't know if he joined today, but he's the earliest developer of games in Roku that I knew about, and he published his Retaliate game in GitHub, and that's where I started just to figure out how to start using Draw2D, the SDK for BrightScript and Roku. So that's how I started basically looking into it. Then I started looking at how Prince of Persia was made, and how could I get some like initial code for that, right? So I didn't want to start from scratch, and actually images and some code, example code, to see if I could do this port. And this is a GIF. I'm a GIF guy. I don't say GIF. I say GIF. So this is a GIF for how the movements was done. I don't know if everyone knows, but Jordan Mechner, he actually got his younger brother to run and to jump and to do all the movements that he wanted for the prince, and he captured in a camera and then digitalized for the Apple II, and that's how he did. So I looked around and I found a couple of versions of the game, one in C#, and I worked with C# for a long time, and another one in JavaScript that I was not that familiar. So I said, okay, I'm gonna get a C# version just to make sure that I can do something. What I want to do is to make the kid walk on the screen. So basically, I got from the C#. Actually, I got the sprite. The sprites from the JavaScript version, but the code to move the kid was from the actual C# version. So let me show you what I did. I want to start already showing some code. So I'm gonna use my emulator. I don't know also if everyone's aware of that, but I created a BrightScript 2D API emulator. So it doesn't emulate scene graph, but it emulates all, at least most of the 2D API from BrightScript. It's based also in the great work, the BRS work that was done by the Holu guys, but I expanded that and created an Electron application. This application is set by always on top, so we will be able to see it running here. So basically, I have the version 0.1 of Prince of Persia. That I'm gonna just and it of course supports all the application installer, the external control protocol for the keyboard, and the remote console. So you're gonna see that the work that Brownlee did works, and he actually helped me to integrate the extension from Visual Studio Code to the emulator, right? So I can select also SD, HD, and or FHD, but I'm leaving 720p because it's the optimal for playing the game. So fortunately, when we get to the audio, you're not gonna probably hear the musics, the beautiful music of the game. But at this stage, that's what I was able to do. I don't know if you guys can see, but there's a small Prince here. So that was I'm. Can you still see the screen now that I maximize the
Yep.
emulator? Okay, good. So that's what I saw. I mean, when I ran and saw in my TV, like a 32 inches TV that I have here in my bedroom, so I just said, great, I have it. So now I'm gonna use the keyboard here, but it was the remote control. See, and then I could make it happen. So it's running, and I don't know if you noticed, but the movement is not that smooth. It's like shaky in particular in the vertical, and I will explain a little bit later how why this is. I can jump. See, the jump is easier to notice. So the jump is like weird, right? It goes down and up instead of just going up. So, but that's what I could do. So let me show a little bit the code that at this stage I had. So basically, I have this is red because there are some of those create object. I reported that already. This is the create object for the draw 2D supports more parameters, and the extension is not recognizing that, but there's no bug. Actually, there's no issue now. So basically now I have a main BRS. So it's basically it is a very standard game structure, which is basically the main loop, right? That and then you update the screen, and then you capture the input from the remote control, and then you draw again the screen, and so on and so on. So basically I have here is basically getting the remote control and see if it's stopped, if it's not stopped. So basically I did that. But one thing I would like to show you first is how I set up the sprites, right? So the draw 2D has a compositor, which is an object that allows you to set up a lot of things to prepare the canvas for your, I mean, the infrastructure for your game, right? So you basically draw all your game into a screen. So you need to create a screen object, and then the compositor is not necessary, but it's very useful. I think that Austin is not using the compositor anymore in his games, but I still use it because I think it's just useful, the way it handles animations and other stuff. So you create a compositor that allows you to basically create animations, create sprites, create other effects that you can use during the game. Basically, you need to tell the compositor where to draw to. So you can draw to a screen, but you can draw to a bitmap too. So I had to use that later on in the game, the ability of the compositor to draw to a bitmap. But normally you're gonna say where to draw to and what's the color of the background. And I use a clock to try to control the time frame. At the time I did this first version, I was not 100% aware of how to control the time, the frame rate and everything, but it just worked. That's what I wanted at this point. And another thing I would like to show you, I created this game util the so I could start put some constants, right, for the game. and this is the function that basically reads the JSON file that I have that has the bitmap regions. Region is also another type of object that the Draw2D has, which is exactly for what most games needs. Is you have a bitmap, and you can set a region of that big bitmap. So in the sprites here, if I show you the kid, let me zoom in here. So you're gonna see all the, this is the bitmap, the big bitmap, and then you set all the regions. This is defined in a JSON like this. So you have frames, and kid 0 is this frame, X, Y, width and height, and if it's rotated, trim it, and everything. This I got from the JSON, sorry, the JavaScript application. But these files, they are created using an application called, actually that's what I use, is this texture packer. Basically what it does, you let me open a project here. I think I prepared one. You get all the images you drop here, drag and drop, and he put the optimal if it's a square, or if in, at this point I think I still had a very limited number of movements, so it was organized as a strip here, but doesn't matter. It does all the work for you and creates the JSON file that you need, right? So this texture packer is a very useful tool. It generates the JSON and the combined file, right?
Hey Marcelo, just 1 second. I've got a question from Mark. Be nice to get your thoughts on it. He's asking, is it possible to have a 2D screen at a smaller size running on top of a scene graph screen?
I didn't get the question. What's the, let me see.
Can you have a 2D? Yeah, you go, Mark.
To have something, I guess, running within this, like having a sprite animated on top of a scene graph app, like can you have like a little draw 2D window that sort of floats like above?
Yeah, I mean, the way it works is very rudimentary. So you have layers, like the layer concept is just the priority where you draw. I mean, this is controlled by the that compositor that I mentioned. So you can, when you start adding the frames, see this last number here is just a Z order, right? So you can do it, but the animation is actually basically redraw after redraw after redraw. What the compositor helps is just that it does it for you. All you need to do at the end of the loop is to say draw all. See, you say to the compositor, you do animation tick. So you basically give one step. You give steps to the compositor for all the animations, and then say draw all, and then you swap buffers. The screen, when you create the screen, you need to tell it to be double buffer. Later on, I discovered that this is not actually double buffer; is multi buffer, because the Roku guys, depending on the model of the Roku, you may have 2 or 3 buffers. So sometimes you need to, if you need to clear the screen, for instance, you need to switch 3 times. Paint the screen in black, and switch, and paint black, and switch, and paint black, so you can have the full screen completely blank, right? So this and the sprites, see, it has special move to, and then you can move to a specific position. It has a lot of methods.
Hey Marcel, we can't mix that on top of scene graph though, right? Like in a scene with row lists and stuff.
We can't make, sorry, can you repeat?
It's one or the other, right? It's either you do 2D or you do scene graph, is that right?
Oh, scene graph, okay, yes. That's you can't mix both, and that's a limitation. They never allowed us to put that. So either you use Bright Script and create a screen, right? Because the SDK one you could mix. The SDK one, you could have both the screens, and then switch to a canvas screen and draw on it, right? So it was very nice. But for the scene graph, they they do not allow that. I don't know if there's any plan for them to do something similar to what we have as today as a screen to draw into it. But I doubt.
So one thing just to add the context to this, that request has actually been made, and some of the engineers have seemed receptive to it. If people want to get a scene graph canvas, make your voice heard, because that's what they rely on, is people speaking up that they want these things. But it is a topic that has been brought up.
Nice, very nice to know.
What's the best way to do that, Christopher? Like to let them know, just through channel partners, or?
I think we have a channel in the Slack that is for request feature requests, right? So we can talk about. I think there are people monitoring from Roku there. So
yeah, they seem to be quite receptive to that these days. I'd say start there, and then at least that way, if you do contact them privately, you can point to that once it's got a few voices on it, and then that tends to add.
Start there. File through partners if you're lucky enough to have them as well. The more ways you can poke them, the more likely they are to respond to it.
Great. So basically, coming back here, I just wanted to finish this. So the load bitmap regions, basically, it's just parsing the JSON file and creating regions based on that file. So it's simple as that. And then I put that on the M when this load regions here. It's probably in the load bitmap regions is used. Okay, go up here. In the top, I get I load all the regions and everything, and create the animations and run. So let me open the version 2. Before I go to the version 2, let me show you something else. So.
Hey, just one thing as well, because I'm sure Brian's wondering, how many of these can you put on screen at once?
How many? I mean, it's depend on the model, right? So as much, that's where my first. I was not thinking that at this stage. I was not thinking that I could make the full game. I was thinking, I probably will be able to draw some stuff and be fun and make like a demo, but not really the full game. I had no idea, because it depends on the Roku performance. So back in the day, the best one was the Roku 3. I think that was already the 4 out, but I had the 3, and then the 3 it ran very well. But I had a Roku HD, and it was very poor. It barely moved. So I was not sure. And then the amount of data that you can show is based on the memory of the device and the CPU. So some devices like the stick, which has an old stick that I had, it worked well, but had like some screen memory limitations. So because I use so many sprites, and it depended, and sometimes I need to like rescale it. It caused like graphics memory problems, and then I couldn't play the game in all the modes that the game allows you to do. So this animation is just to show what I had to do, because I don't know if you noticed, but here I had 2 versions of the kid. One facing left. This is the kid facing left for the movement, and I had to create the one facing right, because I had no idea how to make it like swap programmatically, because BrightScript doesn't give us any bitmap way to do that. Like in 8-bit computers was so easy, it's just to invert the bits of the bitmap, but in BrightScript there was no easy way. So I went to the forum, and someone told me that you need to create a new bitmap and then get one line and draw in the new bitmap, and then get a second line this way that is this GIF is showing up. So that's how I do now in the final version. I don't have both sides, I just have one side, and programmatically when I'm loading the sprites, I do this for the ones that needs to have 2 sides, like the guards and the kid, right? After that, I had to draw the dungeon, the maps, right? The game has 13 levels. It's actually 15 in the code, because some levels has 2 phases inside that's transparent for the user, but actually internally it's 15 levels. Each level can have up to 24 rooms, but most of them doesn't have all the 24 rooms. It's a very clever way that that was created by Jordan Mechner, because it was an Apple II. It's amazing how he could do that in an Apple II, and then saving all as much as he could in terms of bits, like to make these maps possible to be stored, right? But in our case, I mean, that was not a problem because I could have bitmaps and everything. So what we have in the version 2 here is already in the assets. We have general, okay, and maps, and I start having the maps with all the elements and everything. So JSON files for the maps. Let me run this version 2 here so I can show you. So where is it? I put a small splash screen, and then that's what I did. So see, what's very interesting here is that you are seeing a big part, a big chunk of the map of the first level. And that I did that because in reality, the way it's mapped, you need to draw that, and basically what it is actually doing is just showing, back in the day was showing one screen at the time, right? So one room, it calls room, right? So this room first, and then it goes down here, and then here there's a drop, and then he goes down here and move that way. But when I draw, because it was big TV, I could draw way more than a small monitor of the 80s, right? So then what I did here, see the emulation is very slow because I'm running a lot of things in the computer, but see this is the same animation that I had. I just put the dungeon here, and then you can see that he disappeared because some of the walls are in front of him. But he will show up later on over there. See, so basically it's still not going up and down. There's no physics here. It's basically the same version 1 where I just drew the map on top of it, and every single of these torches are animations that are created in the Bright script. So let me go back to the code so I can see what changed here.
So it's all about drawing every frame.
Yeah, so exactly every frame, every single of those flames are being animated. And what I just did when I load the level, I have a level builder here that is a new area, so it gets the tiles, the maps, and it builds the level, just looping and getting the tiles and everything, and behind. It's basically creating frames, each frame into the compositor as an animation for each of those. So that's when I started saying, okay, it can handle, right? So in the Roku 3, it just everything was perfect and the movement was okay. So I said, yeah, that I think it will be possible, right? And I also thought about a possibility of having making the game like really allowing the user to see more, right? So I would have the original classic vision of one room per screen, but I would also allow them to play like in a multi-room view. That will be the first time that this game could be played like that, right? Another challenge was the remote control, right? This is the remote control, the one that from the Roku 3. Still the best model I like from Roku is the Roku 3 because it has this gaming version of it. So I made it possible to play in horizontal mode and in vertical mode, basically because in horizontal mode is more comfortable. But one challenge is because the control does not allow you to press two keys at the same time, right? I don't know if you ever tried that. Most people that develop games in Roku is when we notice that, but the Roku do not indicate that there were two buttons. That there's no way you can detect that. But fortunately, early on, I realized that that was also a problem for the joystick for Apple II. So when Jordan Mechner created his code, he created some kind of inertia. So if the kid is still running and you press to jump, it will run and jump. So the code that he wrote actually helped me in the Roku. It's still tricky to play. You need some practice to really do the jumps and everything. But with a good control like this, which is Wi-Fi, I mean, it's easy, and I could like beat the whole game just using the control. So let me show you the version, more advanced version, the version 4, where I started adding more from the game. Okay, so
What sort of time period are we talking here? Like that you were working on this? Like is
2017. I started in February and I finished this game in September, but it was just like at night and weekends when I could. But it was around 2017.
Got it.
Okay, so let me five emulator. Yeah, this was already showing the splash screen better. Okay, so this is level 3. I had changed. This is I can change in the code which level is. So, but now the movement is smooth, and now you can really hit stuff, right? So see, just hit, and the animation is perfect. Like he back down just like in the original game, and he can hang and move up. This is showing 4 rooms. This is not the original size. This is showing 4 rooms. This doesn't show in a screen of the TV. This is a bug of my emulator that is like leaking stuff down here, but in the screen it doesn't show like that. So basically, I had no trob or mob. Basically, in the original game, it has some concepts of trob and mob. Trob is a transitional object, I think, and mob is a movable object. One is like that's how Jordan Mechner mentioned in the code, and I kept that in my code. But at this point, I had only the map, and he could navigate in the map. Let me stop here. I'm gonna change the and at this point, I also only had the main. Go up. So I created so see level ID 3. I will put level ID 1, which is basically I can start from the level ID, the first level. Yeah, the classical scene. He goes down from there and go down here. Of course, the original game would just show this room. He's showing 4 rooms here, and this is it fell. So, and then it's already, let me show you. Probably you can see my hands, but I'm gonna jump. I'm gonna run and jump. See, so it's possible because I need to just I keep the run. I mean the right button pressed, and then I quickly release the right button and press the up button, and then it just run and using the inertia movement. At this point, there was no way to enter the door or anything, right? One thing that I want to show is that you probably noticed that the movement is better of the kid. That's when at this point, that is when I decided, no, I'm gonna use the JavaScript version that I saw, because the guy really got the code from let me go back here. I want to show you what I'm talking about. This is this project, Ultra Bolido Prince JS. This is linked in my own repository here. So you're gonna see that there's the 2 links here for the Apple II code and for the HTML5 code. So I ported all the basic infrastructure of the game from this guy. It's an unfinished version of the game. He just started and disappeared. Nobody knows where this Ultra Bolido is. It was a pseudonym. He published this and never showed up again, so nobody knows where he is. If you are around there, please contact me. I would like to thank you. But this guy, he did a very good job of translating the basic infrastructure of the game to JavaScript. And then and he's using Phaser, which is a framework for gaming in JavaScript. And I could like mimic most of the Phaser infrastructure just using BrightScript. So at this point, I decided, yeah, I'm gonna use this as a basis, and then move. After that, I complete the game by myself. So using the Apple II. So this is the Apple II project. There's the source code, the full source code here, and it's very well documented. He actually published this PDF with his original 1989 documentation for the source code, because one of the things Jordan Mechner did very well was this documentation, because he wanted this to be ported as much platforms as possible. Back in the day was for him to get royalties, but now helps people like us that just want to have fun. So as I was mentioning, there is this concept of TROBs and MOBs, which is like more objects that moves besides the characters of the game. So let me open the version 7 of this game, so I can show now you're gonna see a lot of more difference, the structure of the game here. So I have the main menu. I added a menu here already. There are some scenes, there's sound. I started adding more and more, but the level builder is way more complex now. It has it loads the bitmap regions for all tile sets, dungeon and palace, because there's two types. There's the dungeon and palace. Let me show you the sprites and tiles. So the dungeon is like that, and the palace is like that, right? So the same way as sprites, the tiles are in sprite sheets like that, the same model, the same JSON file. So all that the level builder does is move to the regions, tile set regions object, the collection of regions. And when you build the level, you read the map from here. So the level 1, read all this in just another couple of loops, reading from the height and the width of the level. So as I said, it can be up to 27 screens. So it just get everything that it needs from that JSON files. So the good thing is I didn't have to plan or to think much about how to organize the whole thing. It was like magic. I just ported stuff, like both from the JavaScript and from the assembly code. When the JavaScript was missing, I went to the assembly code and looked at. But after it was that, like it was like magic. When I say it's like all the physics, like the collision detection, it was ready, and it was I some parts of the code I had to read again to understand how it was working, because it's like he did very well. All this mapping of the tile set versus the positions of each tile, and if it's like a wall, if it's a gate, everything is mapped, and so it's like very straightforward to understand when you are doing the collision detection. One thing that I did interesting here also that I would like to mention in terms of code is that I created like a object-oriented model just to mimic how the Phaser framework in JavaScript does, right? So for every type of character, I created, in this case, it was still kid, but later on I created an abstraction, because when I added the guards and other characters, so, but I have the create kid function that basically creates one of those dynamic arrays we have, right? It's an object. I created this object, and then I return back. So, and every single behavior like walk, turn, jump, land, bump, all the behavior of that object is like just functions that are linked to this array, and it behaves exactly like an object-oriented object, right? So this is very useful because I did that, and I could reuse a lot of code when we start having other characters to work on that. And then also we have the type, the abstractions on top of tile. So I have a tile that is a tile I call tile base, which is a base object for a tile. But there's the specializations here. It's like tile, which that is a button, right? When the ground, you press on the ground and there's a button. A tile that is a gate. So every single tile has its own behavior and its own parameters and events, basically. So it's very interesting that I could have status states for each object like this, and then it's very easy to manipulate later on because it's like very straightforward. And then back in the day, I didn't have the Visual Studio code. I had to work on very simple, I think it was Notepad++, so I didn't have the easy to identify the methods and functions. Now it will be even easier to work with this. So let me run this one. I think I didn't run this version, so you can see how it looked like. This is the version 7. The first version I put on, this has sound.
We can hear that.
Yeah, I just put my earphones. Okay, so this is the first version of the menu. I had the classic mode, 4 rooms mode, and 9 rooms mode, and there was an option to select vertical. All this menu is also done in using the draw 2D, right? So it's all detecting the control, and I'm printing stuff in a canvas. There is no usage at this point. There was no usage of the SDK1. And then when I'm gonna run just, yeah. So this is the classic mode. So it's just one room, right? So see, the performance is great because it's just one room, is rendering a lot less things. You saw that the when it fell in the ground, the plate just moved, and then when it moves on top of the plate, it goes down. And I go down here. He still cannot die in this version, and there's no enemies here. It was supposed to have a guard, but pretty much everything else is working. So at this point, I was very happy that I could manage to get to this point because it's really playable. I can it's like, I don't think if it can die at this point. I don't know. Let me see. Yeah, it does. Yeah, there's the. Yeah, it's already dying, and I think I can move. I put the like fast forward and fast backward to change levels. Let me see if the. Yeah, level 3. Level 3 I think has a. Yeah, there was no sound yet for this, but it can. He can die. So let me see if I can see the palace level here. Yes, the palace level is buggy in this version, but this is a previous version. In the full version, it's running. Yeah. So let me continue here just to show you some stuff in the presentation. Some other challenges. Okay, trobs and mobs. I mentioned that. So finally I decided to things to add what I was thinking that would really make the game not work well. I was afraid that if I put the AI for the guards and the fight and all this, then finally the performance of the Roku will go down, and it would not work. But it was the smartness of the original code that made it really not affect the performance, and it was very good. So I managed to do that. So this is just a curiosity too. The fight was that he really got from old movies, so all the movements, and he did the same thing he did with his brother. And also I find out that there's also the Macintosh version was a higher resolution, and it would look better in a Roku because the screen is bigger. And so I also decided to put in my version the Macintosh sprites. So it was possible to do that. So let me show you finally how it is ended up. So I'm gonna load now the full Prince of Persia version. Is so this some part of the code that I mentioned before that I would like to show you is loud. I have a character that I called actor. So an actor is just the base of any character. And then if you go to the other characters, I have now the kid. So whenever I create a kid, it's a specialization, right? So basically it's a specialization. There is the mouse. There is implement actor here. It just implements everything that is basic. So the mouse, I don't know if everybody's aware, but during the game, I think it's stage 8, there is a mouse that come and rescue you. You need to be stopped in a specific room and everything, but then the mouse can get to you. So the guards there are several types of guards. And levels of difficulty. The funny thing is everything that you see here is from the original game. So all the strike probability, restrike probability, impair block probability, the difficulty to kill a guard in a specific level, in a specific stage is based on these values here, and it all came from the original game. The same thing is true when you see the animations here. So these numbers here, these are commands. So this is how the animation works, and depending on the command. So like 251, if you go to the utilities, let me show you. Oh, I'm in the source game utils, and the top I have all the constants, and then you see the commands. So the command 250 and 251 is a offset character Y and X. So when you go to this JSON, you're saying that 251 is like 5 is a shift, like in the running movement is the command is to shift 5 pixels in the direction wherever it's going to. So this is all from the original game in assembly. So you're gonna see this exact table if you go to the assembly code and go to the source code here, and then you're gonna say the where is that? It's in the move data, I think is here. No, is not. Is in a frame. I saw this frame def. I think yeah here. So this is see stand jump, run jump, and everything. So this is the same table just translated from hexadecimals and everything into these JSON files, and everything just worked. Then I had to develop what I called what is called in the documentation by the special events, and that I need to thank a lot these guys from this site. Prince of Persia is a mod community, is a big mod community, and they created all kinds of extensions and documentations about the game. And in particular, there's one documentation that defines all these special events that happens during the game, that like is the creation, the skeleton in 11.3, how the skeleton actually should work, and the shadow. So that shadow is that scene that you saw, that it crosses, it jumps over the mirror and becomes a shadow of himself. And so green potions, the green potion, it was tricky in my version, because there are two green potions. One is to give you like more lives. No, sorry, the green potions is a big portion. One is to give you floating capability, so you can jump from a very high place. But another one is this one in the level 9. It is a tricky one. It flips the screen upside down. And in order to do that in Bright Script, I had to use that ability of the compositor to draw to a bitmap. So if I go to the special, let me see here, is game special. Green potion. Yeah, I can't find it here, but basically what I had to do was I had to draw the whole image in a bitmap. Then I had to do the same way I did with the kid sprite, copying line to line to invert, to horizontally invert the scene, and then paint the whole bitmap on the screen. So that makes the speed. I had to increase the frame rate in order to allow, and I think it's visible probably in the game screen loop. I probably have, this is the main loop I have. It's very, let me go to the main loop here of the game, because you probably will see that if, yes, so it's here. Yeah, perfect. So here's easy to see. So if it's flip, right, and the game scale is different, it just draws scaled objects, otherwise it draws. So this flip vertically is the tricky one. So I have to get the game canvas, flip the bitmap vertically, and then I draw the object in the main screen. So this really affects the performance. So because of that, the speed of the frame rate needs to change, right? But this is frame by frame. That after I draw it, then I swap buffer. So the difference here is just that here I'm drawing a whole bitmap, and here I'm just drawing the status bar, and the rest is drawn by the compositor here in this draw all command. So you can see that the loop is very simple for the game at the end, right? So you have here the tick to check the speed, and then you have if you need to redraw the map because it changes the room, kid updates the position of the kid, then it draws the room, and then check if there is any special event happening, one of those that I showed you, then it check the timer, and then it does guard update, check for opponent, update the transitional objects, the movable objects, the masks, because sometimes you need a mask for the tiles to not overlap each other. The flash background is when it gets the spade, it flashes the background, or when it drinks the potion, it flashes the background, and in the sound, and basically the sound update. So this is basically the infrastructure of the game. It just loops on all this, and after everything is updated, you animate and you draw. So this is basically the basic structure of the loop, and this is complication here is just because of that special potion that you can do. So that's basically the game. Let me run. This is the final version that is available in the GitHub. In the GitHub, you probably I started publishing, I think, in the version 9, and it's in the version 14, I believe. I don't know exactly what's the version, but yeah. Oops. Where's the sim? Yeah, I put a disclaimer here to not be prosecuted. And the menu, I just got this image from a version that was published for iPad back in the day. They took off from the store, but I managed to get this image. And the game settings, now includes more things, so you can change to Macintosh. Let me show you the Macintosh. And also I created a tool to convert the mods that people did for the DOS version, the MS-DOS version, to convert to my game. So now you can get any of the mods that the community created and use in a Roku game. But let me show you how does the Macintosh version looks like. And this is something interesting too, is that I added also the scenes that are how it's called the between each level, some of the levels there's a scene, and of course in the beginning of the game I reproduced the whole scene of the game. So and this is using the same game code, right? So it's just, instead of using the control, I'm animating using the just code, right? And timing, right? So there's a timer, and it's basically all the controls are done in code, but it's using the same actors, right? That I created in the code. Yeah, so all the movements, everything, the music, everything is synchronized. You can see there's flashing. I even reproduced the flashing stars back in the back. Everything, it was developed. Okay, any key, it just done. So this is the Macintosh sprites. It's a better resolution. It looks great, and it has the same. Yeah, I just lost one life. I can't, if I go this way, I can't, because I don't have this my sword. So I will need to get the sword in the other side, but everything works just like the game. You can see that I can control very well, because I tested this game so many times that. Okay. Let me just go to the sword so you can see. So this is an emulator in the emulator in a running on a Roku. I mean, if it's a newer version, it's even better performance than what you see here. I have a Roku Ultra here. It works perfectly. Okay, let me get the.
I was going to say, Mark, I remember waiting 6 months to get a 512K memory.
And then where is? I'm trying to remember the key to get this is a shift.
Salivating over this game.
Anyway, level 2. Okay, so let me see if I have anything else in the. So so all the levels are now running. Everything is there. There are level editors in the mod community, so you can use one of these and create a full level and mod and export. And then I have in my GitHub, there is a tool that you can download, and you can convert that and run on Roku if you want. Yeah, before we go to Load Runner, I will go very quickly in Load Runner and Donkey Kong, because it's basically we have not much time left. But does anybody any questions about the Prince of Persia?
I had one. So I noticed you have a lot of printouts there. Curious if that affects the performance at all.
Oh, this?
Yeah.
It does. I try to clean up as much as I can, but there is still something running, because this is basically in my production channels. I take it off everything,
Sure.
but it does in in the Ultra and the Roku 3 you don't feel much. In the emulator sometimes it does, because this is running on the emulator. Sometimes it affects. It's but mostly it's because of the bug and everything. I still leave it here. So see this is things that are running in the background. I wanted to see like this fire is when it presses the button in the ground. So there are debugging leftovers here.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
just second Felipe's sentiment, which is it's really incredible what you've done. Like I say, I remember waiting half a year just to have the RAM to run this on Amiga 500, you know. And when I first saw this was on a Roku stick, man, I felt old, you know. But I've taken a
Yeah.
look at your code, you know, and it's really impressive. It's part of the reason it inspires me to keep going on, because I actually approach the Roku I approach Roku development more as game development, to be honest.
Yeah.
Because
One thing I did, yeah.
performance, seeing this is just really inspiring for
Yeah, you're gonna see some code here that I put recently to run that on the emulator. Is because the old version of this not the old version, the version that I published originally, the final one. It was using some SDK one. I got lazy in creating these menus, and then when I created the mods and cheat, I used the Roku SDK one to create this small list menu here. But then when Roku deprecated that, and also the emulator does not support that, so I had to write that code in screens too. So you're gonna see all these list screen, message dialog, and keyboard screen. This is all reproduction in Draw2D of the old SDK1 list screen. So it's not actually game; it's just code that I created to make this list here. And then here's where you can select one of the ports that I created. There's actually a Super Nintendo version of it. It's not the full Super Nintendo version, but there's some sprites from it and some crazy versions like the Pirates of Persia. And there's one interesting one, is a guy that created the Princess of Persia. He created this mod, and it's all a girl trying to rescue. Oh no, it's not. Let me go there. Oh, I have to. Princess of Persia. See the Princess of Persia, and she's rescuing. Is not the prince. She's rescuing her father. So it's a very interesting version. Even the audio is different, and is a lady. So good for nowadays that we have to have representation for women. So there is also this option to play as a girl. So the what I say is that the code is I try to put a lot of comments, but it's not difficult if you follow the structure based on the main. If you go make game main, actually for the menu, and if you start from game screen, there's a game screen here with a main loop. You're gonna see, if you go each of these updates here, you're gonna see how things are done in each one of them, right? So it's not complicated. If anybody wants to know more about the details of anything here, just contact me on Slack. I can help you. So after that, I decided to do a load runner, because it was also a very interesting game, and I found all the levels also in a JavaScript, this JavaScript project here, load runner total recall. And so I found a lot of the images, like the sprites, and it's a very simple game. So using what I created for Prince of Persia, I did this in 1 month, only in the free time. It was basically reuse the whole framework that I created for the Prince of Persia, very simplified version, and then I created load runner. So it's like let me open the channel package here. Projects, Roku, load runner.
Is texture memory an issue on any of the game development?
What do you mean? That
Like basically, or maybe I guess maybe it doesn't apply because obviously with scene graph you have the texture memory limit, which especially in the low end ones is pretty small.
no, I got it. No, it's all drawn directly. So this is a load runner. It has all the stuff from load runner. So this was very quick, and I did it and published that. And then I decided to do Donkey Kong, and that's when I got in trouble. When I mean by getting in trouble is because Nintendo contacted GitHub and Roku and requested for take down this game. And this was sad for me because this was a game that I decided not to port. I did a remake. I decided, no, this time I'm gonna try to just based on the usability of the game, how the game works. And now that I know how to write a game, I would try to create the strategies by myself, right? So I just basically got you can see here this animation is basically I got the levels that I found, so the bitmap of the levels, and I divided in blocks like that, and I created my own tiles for the game, just in a spreadsheet, like an Excel spreadsheet like that, with some notation I created, like saying, where is if it's in which level is it? So I created a very crazy notation, and then from that I created the JSON files. So let me open the Donkey Kong here, and basically in the assets you're gonna say the maps. So all this O17 L1 right 1, so all became this. So is a notation about how each tile contains and what's the offsets. It's basically offsets, so I could guide my guys, and where is the position of the Kong, where is the position of the lady, where is the position of Jumpman, which is Mario, and what objects does exist in that particular board. And I just created that from the beginning. So I didn't have to I didn't write any code. I just did this spreadsheet and put everything here, and then I started like creating the same way I created for the other ones, but it's way simpler. And I started reproducing everything. The only piece of code that I actually ported was the barrel. Okay, the barrel AI. There's a lot of. It's funny because the Donkey Kong has a lot of history, right? There's a like world champions and big fights again to get the high score and everything. And then because of that, there was a lot of people really into the code and also the behavior of the original arcade game. And one of the things people realize that is really there is a code in the original assembly code that makes the barrel smart. So it does drop on you if you are behind, if in the first level, if you are below one of the ladders that are from the middle up, and there is a barrel up passing, it will go down on you, right? So that was something that was done to make it difficult the first levels, and they wanted, of course, to sell more to get more coins from the players in the arcade. But and one funny thing about this is this I ported this code from here. There is a article that I found online here, this one, controlling the barrels in Donkey Kong. The funny thing is the guy is like teaching you to control the barrels. You can control the barrels based on the movements you do, and then he shows how is the code here. He put a C-like version here of the logic, and that's the only part of the game that I actually ported right from some other code. The rest I did by myself. And a funny thing is, the fireballs, they are completely random. Basically, the algorithm is this: it does like I get a random number between 0 and 10 steps, I believe, in a direction, if it's left or right, and then it runs this number of steps and then stop and try again. And then when it stops, it checks if it's on a ladder or not. If it's on a ladder, it's also get a random number to see if it should climb the ladder or not, or go down in a ladder or not, right? So it's completely random. But when I was testing the game, several times I got myself looking into those fireballs and saying, "What the fuck? This sorry for the bad name. What's happening here? This thing is following me, right? Even I was the one that wrote the code. I knew that it was random, but the perception was that it was following us. So that dropped a lot of my old thoughts about games. I mean, those ancient games, the AI is very, very dumb and very simple, right? But back in the day, we had a lot of theories about how smart those characters were, but actually they were just randomly moving in a smart way. Yeah, I talked about the takedown. And one thing I would like to mention is like, after I finished all these 3 games and I was reading interviews about the 3 guys that did this, history about that, I knew that Jordan Mechner had done Prince of Persia, inspired in part on Lode Runner. He mentions that he was inspired by Lode Runner, and the guy that created Lode Runner, he told in an interview that he was inspired by Donkey Kong. So I realized that in some way I created 3 games for Roku that were linked by inspiration, and I did in a reverse order of inspiration, and it was completely by chance. So that was it. And one more thing, Moon Patrol. This was a project I started, I never finished. Is in GitHub. If anybody wants to help me finish it, it's up to you, because it's there. I created some of it. I wanted to do something different from a regular character based. This is like a more road one. It has obstacles, and there's a lot of things. So I couldn't finish this. I had no time. I had other projects. Sorry, guys. I took like way more than I expected, and but yeah, if you want ask questions, that was it.
Hey, that was brilliant. Can I just ask a question? Have you got Moon Patrol handy? Can we just see it for a second?
I'm not sure it will work in the emulator. Let me see.
So I'm really intrigued to see what scrolling performance is like. That's because
open folder. Patrol. I'm not sure if I did anything to run on the emulator, because there are some stuff that emulators still do not support from BrightScript that I have to. Okay, stop.
I love the fact you did all of this in Notepad as well. That's amazing.
Launch. Okay, BrightScript. Manifest source assets. Password is there. What's going on? Okay, now it works. Not sure if it will work. I think I did. I adapted it. No, it does not. So when it's red like that, you're gonna see here. Yeah, attempted to retrieve property from a non-iterable invalid. There's some stuff in 26. Yeah, maybe I can do that. I think I have a video. Yeah, probably it's easier if you. There is in my YouTube channel, by the way, has a good history. I published YouTube. Okay. Yeah, Moon Patrol is here, so let me show you. This is actually running on the. I actually put two sets of sprites. One is for this is the original arcade. The music is very annoying, but I wanted to keep it the original. So this is the state that it ended up like. There's no enemy. It's just basically some holes in the ground that you need to jump. And I put two sprites. One, this is the arcade original one, and there is one for the, I think, Atari 8-bit or something like that. Let me move on here. Yeah, so here it always show the other type of graphic, the Atari ST. Yes, the Atari ST is looks nicer. That's the one. One thing here that got me stuck is that I couldn't get a very good source of the maps, of all the different maps and where the holes are and everything. So I would need to actually play the game and take notes, and everything will be a very time consuming. So yeah, so I ended up not doing. But that's basically how it is. Nothing more than that. I reuse the same infrastructure that I use for the other ones. And as I was saying, there's a playlist in my channel that shows all the okay, playlists. There's a playlist here for just for Prince of Persia that shows the progress, like from the version 0.5 running on a Roku to the actually final version. So I highlighted some of the things that I have implemented and everything. There's one interesting here, which is the I think it's this one that shows the special no, I think it's this one that shows the 12 is shows the special events that I create. And yeah, so here there is the special event. So the mirror running on the Roku. So that was also tricky to put the reflection of the kid here and cut it, have a mask here to not show the actual image on the other side. Yeah, and the shadow is something that also was done in this effect of the sprite for the shadow. Okay, where is it? Okay, this effect here that shows this is basically a trick that you put like one pixel dislocated of two images and do a XOR operation in the bits, and then you have this effect, getting just this same image, and you get this effect. And so in an 8-bit computer is a very simple thing to do, but in a Roku I had to create a whole new set of sprites just to do this, because it was impossible for me to do an XOR in bitmap in Roku. So yeah, that was it. Yeah, so yeah, I know that's a lot, but I hope that I could give an idea of how I did this. Yeah, the Prince of Persia is the biggest project and is really complete and has a lot of tricky. The coding sometimes, in particular in these exception scenarios, there's a lot of like real like ugly code, like a lot of if and conditionals that I could be more elegantly done. But at the end, I was just like, oh, I need to do this and that, and so it was like. Not at the beginning, I was way more elegant in my code. Then I started like losing up.
Just have you seen Brighter scripts at all? Because when you show me the code, I think it would lend itself really nicely to being written in Brighter script, because then you've got classes, you've got inheritance.
Yeah, I tried to mimic that, right? So this concept of inheritance and classes, just to make it easier to organize the code. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. I've been doing OOAD coding on Roku since day one, and that's one of the. Because I'm looking at this, I'm actually tempted to port it to Brighter script if you don't mind, because I think it would suit it really well.
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, it's there. There's no, and it's funny because this Donkey Kong thing, it was crazy because Nintendo they just didn't. I think what happened really was that someone posted in Reddit. I think that was what happened. Like someone posted in a Reddit page about the games, and they mentioned all the games, right? And I have a private channel for all of these games that I because when I had no emulator, that was the only way I could like share with other people, that in an easy way, than normally without people having to configure their Roku's as like developer mode and everything. So I created a private channel, and I like shared with some people, put in some forums, in particular the Prince of Persia community, right? And the Donkey Kong community. But someone posted that on Reddit, and that took on some like this tech and game forums started talking about it, and I think that's where the Nintendo guys got aware of that. And Nintendo has a history of taking down any uh, fan based codes, and so they went after both. I was surprised because I thought that they would just go after the Roku, because it makes sense. Okay, it was publicly available as a private channel, but it was public. But for GitHub, I found very weird. I tried to argue with the GitHub guys. I said, "Hey, I would take down the images and the sound, because that's really copyrighted. But the code I wrote it myself. There's basically no. It's completely wrote by myself. Can I leave it there?" But they said no. It's a takedown. It's a DMA thing. I could like maybe write back. But I'm not a lawyer. I didn't want to get problems, so they took it down. The thing is, it's still there in GitHub. Someone forked, and it's still there. I don't know. It's not officially forked. Someone resubmitted the with is an Asian guy. I don't know who the guy, but it's there. I mean, so, and he kept all my name is there and everything, but it's like I have no. I notified GitHub, hey, someone re-uploaded, and they said, oh, you want to write a DMA request to take it down? I said no. This is Nintendo problem. It's just there. But yeah, I was pissed off. I was actually interviewed by some guys from the, I think Torrent Freak is a big site for that discuss torrent and piracy and this kind of thing, and they got aware of that, and they interviewed me because of that. And I said, yeah, I'm sad. If you look for Donkey Kong in GitHub, there are a lot of projects there. And why they took down mine, I got that as a compliment. Maybe mine was too perfect. Like it was too commercial like it looked perfectly and everything, all the animations, everything worked as the original, so they probably thought it would be frightening for them. I don't know.
Well, that was brilliant. I think we're pretty close to. I don't think we have time for anything else. I don't know what you think about it, Brian. I think we're pretty much there. I've got just one really brief question while you guys are here, though, which is, what do you guys think about the status of games in Roku? Because I don't see Roku's going anywhere. I think a lot of you guys know I have that opinion. I think they're at such a price point, they're not going to go anywhere. We know that by Moore's law, the hardware is going to keep getting better. So I think at some point, games are going to become more and more viable on the device. Do you guys share that opinion? Because I think there would be some merit in making gaming Roku or further.
I think the real limitation is the monetization models, in terms of like being able to get someone behind you to put time into it, right? To make something from scratch. That's where I see the issues being.
Controller as well.
Yeah, the momentum mechanic that was mentioned is actually a really interesting way around the 2-button issue, because I've dealt with that even at scene graph levels where I've wanted to do that, and it's just nope, no idea that the previous button was let go and crap like that if you press a second. So there's issues like that.
Yeah. One thing is I I think the also the monetization you mentioned, like I have one game officially in the store, is also a port, but it's a very simple puzzle game. It's called Quartet, and I created just to put a advertisement. So I said, okay, I'm gonna put advertisement just to try and see how it works, right? It gives me very, very, very few money. I don't even know. But the bad thing is not this whole part of advertisement is very complicated in Roku. I mean, I to make this game actually give me any money, it was a nightmare. I mean, months and months of trying to understand and sending emails and trying and else asking people that I know in Roku that can help me to move forward, because there's no portal like we have in our for the developers, that you see how many of your channels are sold and everything. But for the RAF, there is pretty much nothing. You need to rely on getting emails with the reports, and I stopped receiving the emails, so I gave up. I actually have another game. It's a small puzzle game to put, but I gave up. I said no. If I'm gonna put that, I will put like $1 to see if people will be interested in buy it. But yeah.
Yeah, advertising has been tough. Roku stopped supporting my games as a ad provider like maybe 2 years ago now. So I went with another provider, which they ended up having issues. They folded about 4 months ago. Still haven't. Well, I have another person I'm working with, but I'm still having trouble getting their ad tags integrated. And now, recently, I'm being blocked now because some of my games are over 4 megabytes. So I can't get past the cert process because they're too big. So.
Oh yeah, that's this thing too. Yeah, but yeah, there are some ways to do that, but download later and everything. In the Prince of Persia, if you look at the code I created a mechanism to download the mods, so you can have mods that are inside the package, but because it exactly this problem of having a big package, I download the sprites and everything, all the assets, and then use that. So it takes a little bit more time, but if it's a way to increase the game, right? To give more. But another thing, I don't know why they gave up the remote control with the AB also for the premium. Normally it was only the premium, right? The Roku 3 and the Roku 4 had that control with the AB, so it will be additional for gaming remote. It's perfect because you can have the pad, right? The direction pad, but also 2 buttons for the game. And then they took it off. So I think game is not in their business model anymore.
Yeah, not anymore. There was a time.
Yeah.
There was a time. They even had like an Angry Birds model Roku.
Yes, my Roku 3 had Angry Birds, and this control here, I think you guys can see it. This control, it has actually movement sensor, but it was never open for us, right? So we can only for people that use the NDK, I believe, had access to this, and they took it off, right? So I don't have Angry Birds anymore. So this is not using.
That was a real missed opportunity for user control.
Yes, it could be doing some stuff. I know that Austin, in his game, he created a game that is using actually the phone. Like he did a party game. It's very interesting. It's like
the neon party games. Yeah,
neon party game. So he created that and uses the actually users' phones to be controls, but it's limited, right? So you could do these simple games, but to really do something
like a
complex.
ECP call. Yeah.
One thing I don't, if you're gonna try the emulator with the game, make sure that you click on the actual emulator screen, even when it's like in this. It has this option of always on top, so you can see the in the Visual Studio Code here the output and it's still run. But don't use the output keyboard control. You know that when you are in the output, you can use the keyboard here, right? So if you're running any of the, okay, let me show you here. So if you're running here, If I'm output here, I'm using my keyboard, right, up and down. This is coming from the Visual Studio Code, right, up and down. But don't use this to play games, because the way it's done is using the key press endpoint in the web API, and it's not good for games. The game needs to have at least the key down and key up. So make sure you click here and have the actual full control. So the control is better when it uses the emulator.
Sweet.
I thought I was sharing. Sorry, I was not sharing my screen. I thought that I was still sharing my screen. But anyway, what I mean is, I think you got it.
Thank you, everyone. I've really enjoyed this. It's a brilliant presentation. And
thank you.
Yeah,
sorry, I talked too much. I know.
Oh, you're good. It's awesome.
Fantastic, man. Really enjoyed it. I've been looking forward to that for a while as well. But I've really got to go. The missus is like, where the hell are you? So she's not seen me since like many hours ago. So thanks very much, chaps. Have a good one.
Bye.
Stay safe, everyone. Bye-bye.
See ya.